Unemployment and the economy. The measurement of unemployment, the current population survey, and other definitions. In this video, how unemployment is measured and how the unemployment rate is calculated will be examined, the significance of the unemployment rate for the economy, the relationship between the unemployment rate and economic growth, and the factors that determine the natural rate of unemployment. In order to understand the unemployment rate, first we have to understand something called the labor force. The labor force is a subset of the population. For the purpose of the CPS, or Current Population Survey, the civilian, non-institutional population includes persons 16 years of age and older residing in the 50 states and the District of Columbia who are not inmates of institutions, for example, penal or mental facilities, nor homes for the aged, and who are not on active duty in the military. Persons on active duty in the U.S. Armed Forces are excluded from coverage. The purpose of the unemployment rate is as an economic indicator. And since the U.S. Armed Forces do not fluctuate with changes in the economy, it is not considered part of the economic indicator. In calculating the unemployment rate, the denominator of the fraction is the labor force. The labor force is made up of those employed and those unemployed, where the definition of unemployment is the number of people currently employed in the economy, either full or part-time. The definition of unemployment is the number of people who are actively looking for work but aren't currently employed. So the labor force is equal to the sum of these two numbers, employment plus unemployment. The labor force members who spend time looking for employment are engaged in job search. An individual not engaged in job search, therefore, is not counted as part of the labor force. The data on unemployment is gathered through the Current Population Survey. The Current Population Survey, or CPS, is a monthly survey of households conducted by the Bureau of Census for the Bureau of Labor Statistics. Each month, from a probability sample of approximately 60,000 households, the labor force statistics are gathered. The survey provides data on the labor force, employment, unemployment, persons not in the labor force, hours of work, earnings, and other demographic and labor force characteristics. The unemployment rate is the percentage of the total number of people in the labor force who are unemployed. As a mathematical function, unemployment rate equals number of unemployed workers in the numerator, the labor force in the denominator, multiplied by 100 to get a percentage rate of unemployed. In other words, the unemployment rate is not a measure of those receiving unemployment insurance, but rather a statistical observation of those who answer the Current Population Survey. What percent of adults participate in the labor force in the United States can be answered with a statistic called the labor force participation rate. It is the percentage of the population age 16 or older that is in the labor force. The labor force participation rate is a calculation of labor force in the numerator, population age 16 and older in the denominator, and multiplied by 100 to find the labor force participation percentage rate. The reason we use population age 16 and older is because those below the age of 16 are covered by child labor laws. And who is not counted? As mentioned earlier, an individual who is not currently seeking work is not counted as part of the labor force. Marginally attached workers are defined as persons not in the labor force who want to work and are able to work and who have looked for a job sometime in the prior 12 months. or since the end of their last job if they held one within the past 12 months, but who are not counted as unemployed because they have not searched for work in the 4 weeks preceding the survey. Discouraged workers are a subset of the marginally attached. According to the Bureau of Labor Statistics, discouraged workers are not part of the labor force because they have not actively looked for work in the past 4 weeks, but who are not currently looking because they believe there are no jobs available or there are none for which they would qualify. The unemployment rate would be much higher if these folks were counted, about 8% higher during the last recession, with a high point of 18% in 2009. The unemployment rate is an economic indicator for what is happening in the overall economy. The unemployment rate would be considered a lagging indicator. A lagging indicator is an economic indicator which changes after GDP changes. In both the early 1990s and early 2000s, unemployment continued to rise for some time after the recession was officially declared over, and did not begin to fall until the economy was well into the expansion. Source for this data is the Bureau of Labor Statistics and the National Bureau of Economic Research. Unemployment can be divided into 3 types of unemployment: frictional, structural, and cyclical unemployment. Frictional unemployment is unemployment due to the time workers spend in job search, such as looking for work. Frictional unemployment is short-term unemployment that it takes to match the right job with the right worker. Seasonal unemployment is an example of frictional unemployment. When a worker with skills as a lift op or ski area lift operator is laid off at the end of the ski season because there is no longer enough snow to sustain the service, these individuals are considered seasonally unemployed. When the snow starts to fly again in the fall, these individuals will likely be rehired. Structural unemployment is unemployment that results when there are more people seeking jobs in a labor market than there are jobs available at the current wage. This is typically a longer-term unemployment. Minimum wage raises the current wage in the labor market and creates structural unemployment in the labor market. Minimum wage is an example of structural unemployment. Another example of structural unemployment is caused by higher than equilibrium wage rates. Some employers choose to pay workers more than the equilibrium wage rate. Paying higher wages creates positive incentives for workers. Efficiency wages are defined as wages the employers set above the equilibrium wage rate as an incentive for better performance. Ford of Ford Motor Company paid his workers an efficiency wage to retain workers. Now let's look at the natural unemployment rate. The natural rate of unemployment is the unemployment rate around which the actual rate fluctuates. It is the unemployment rate that arises from the effects of frictional plus structural unemployment. Mathematically, the natural rate of unemployment is equal to frictional plus structural. Cyclical unemployment is the deviation in the actual rate of unemployment from the natural rate. Mathematically, cyclical unemployment equals actual unemployment minus the natural rate of unemployment. In an example problem, if the actual observed unemployment rate in the economy, as collected by the current population survey, is 7%, and given frictional unemployment is 2%, structural unemployment is 3%, what is the cyclical unemployment rate and what is the natural rate of unemployment? Pause the video at this time, and then when you have your answers, check your work on the next slide. The natural rate of unemployment is defined as the frictional plus the structural unemployment rates. Frictional unemployment was given as 2%. Structural unemployment was given as 3%. So the natural rate of unemployment is 2% plus 3%, or 5% natural rate of unemployment. Cyclical unemployment is the deviation in the actual rate of unemployment from the natural rate. So if actual unemployment rate is given as 7%, and the natural rate of unemployment is calculated as 5%, then the cyclical unemployment rate is 7 minus 5%, or 2%. How unemployment is measured and how the unemployment rate is calculated has been defined. We reviewed the significance of the unemployment rate for the economy, the relationship between unemployment rate and economic growth, and the factors that determine the natural rate of unemployment. These statistics are very important and will be used as we continue to examine macroeconomics.